Today we'll be working on Up the Ladder, Session 14. Today I'm going to teach you that readers of narrative nonfiction read using those different filters or ways of seeing the text. One filter helps you pay attention and understand the story. Another helps you to learn the information. So let me ask you something. Have you ever taken a photo using a smartphone? You know how you can take photos using different filters so that the image looks a little bit different? Images look different when you change the filter. When you put on a black and white filter, the image is black and white. When you put on a warm filter, the image is a little more golden. The image remains the same, but it appears different depending on which filter you use. I know it probably seems a little funny that here with reading, we're here in reading and here I am talking about smartphones, but the truth is that I'm telling you about filters for a very important reason. Today I want to teach you that readers of narrative nonfiction are a bit like photographers. They use different filters to see different things. Certainly, readers of narrative nonfiction read for the story, and that's one filter. But narrative nonfiction is still nonfiction, which means it's also meant to teach us something. So another filter you can use when reading narrative nonfiction is a reading to learn information filter. Now it's time for you to learn how to read the same narrative nonfiction text through the read to learn information filter. I'm going to explain more about what I mean. If I were reading a biography about a civil rights activist who grew up during the 1950s, besides learning about the subject of the biography, I would also expect to learn a little bit more about America in the 1950s and about what the time in history was like. But I also try to learn more about civil rights, which I know is a fight still happening today. I could read any of these narrative nonfiction texts to learn the subjects of the story, or I could read to learn more about the world. While reading, I can make boxes and bullets. So today we're going to be looking back at pages 28 to 29 of our Beastly Tales. While we read this, we're going to use our imaginary smartphones. We're going to find our story filter this time. You're going to use your story filter to pay attention to the character, the setting, the plot, and any changes you see happening. Okay? Let's look at the story. In 1951, mountaineer Eric Shipton and his party were exploring an unknown part of the Himalayas when they came across a line of strange footprints in the snow. The footprints looked similar to human footprints, but they were twice as wide. They sunk deeper into the snow than the climber's boots, so they must have been made by an incredibly heavy creature. Most amazing of all, the clear toe prints showed that the creature was walking barefoot in the freezing snow. And of course, we have a picture of Eric Shipton here. And we have Michael Ward, one of Eric Shipton's climbing companions, compares his own footprints on the right with those of the creatures. And Eric Shipton placed his 13-inch centimeter ice axe in this photograph to show the size of the footprints. Now remember, we're using our story filter now. So we want to pay attention to the characters, the setting, the plot, and the change. So let's look at who our characters are. Okay, so we have Eric Shipton is our main character. He was leading this party of explorers. Okay, we also know that he was exploring where. So we have our setting. We have a date, so we have a year. It's 1951, so we know it's in the past. And we also see that they're in the Himalayan mountains. So we know we're in the Himalayan mountains in the Asian, right there, in the area we talked about earlier, between India and China, in the Nepal region. Okay? So we do have a location. We're in the mountains. It's going to be cold outside. There's snow and ice all around us. It's 1951 in the past. Not only that, we see black and white photographs. So that definitely tells us we're not in modern times. Okay. What else do we need to look at? Let's go back. We need to look at the plot and changes. So what happened? Well, let's look at the big events. Eric Shipton and his party were exploring the Himalayan mountains, and they found strange footprints in the snow. Okay, when they looked at the footprints in the snow, they noticed that the snow prints were very large, much wider than a human's, and were very deep in the snow. So, what changes? What changes do we see? Now, that's a good question. We can talk about changes in, the characters here. They change from just exploring to then being puzzled because they didn't know what this was. So their big change for Eric Shipton and all the men in the party were that now they're confused because they don't know what those footprints were from. All right. So it's a sort of a mystery, and they are in a state of wonderment. All right. They were in a state of exploring before, but now they've changed that state of mind from now exploring to now trying to figure out what it was. And you can tell that they were trying to figure it out because they looked at how deep it was. So they were thinking, oh, it's really heavy, too heavy to be a human. And they compared it to a human foot, and they said it didn't look like that. They even compared it to their axe blade. So remember, when we're reading narrative nonfiction, and that means biographies and true stories, you need to pay attention to key story elements such as the characters, the setting, the events of the plot, and even change that happens. We also need to remember to read the text through multiple filters. We can read for a story filter, or we can also read to learn information filter.